Ethan had always believed that space travel would bring him wonder, adventure, and discoveries that humans had only dreamed of. He had trained for years, studied alien cultures, and prepared for diplomatic missions far from Earth. Yet nothing had prepared him for the moment he first stepped onto the surface of Lyria Prime, a planet that seemed like a painting come to life. Green hills rolled endlessly, rivers sparkled under a violet sun, and forests hummed with a life that felt almost alive. The air was thick with a sweet scent, and the skies were streaked with the soft glow of 3 moons. He expected to be greeted by scientists or officials, or maybe just a crowd of curious Lyrians. What he did not expect was to be led to the central hall of the Lyrian Council and handed 2 tiny, delicate beings in the span of a few minutes. "They are yours," said one of the council members, a tall being with iridescent skin that shifted color depending on the angle of the light. Their voice was calm, almost musical. "You must help them grow. You must help them survive. The future of our species rests with you." Ethan blinked. He looked down at the tiny figures held in the council members' hands. They were small, almost the size of a human child's hands, but their eyes glowed softly with a light that seemed to see into his very soul. The twins, as they were called, Mira and Neela, turned their heads toward him, and in a moment that defied all logic, he heard their voices, not with his ears, but directly in his mind. "Do not be afraid," one of them said. "We need you." Ethan froze. He could not move, could not speak, because he realized he was hearing the thoughts of these tiny beings as clearly as if they were speaking out loud. He had been trained for first contact, trained for alien psychology, but this was beyond anything he had imagined. He glanced around, hoping someone would explain what this meant. The council members' faces were serene, almost expectant, as if waiting for him to understand something only he could see. I think there's a mistake," he said finally, his voice shaky. I don't." The twins giggled, a sound so soft and musical it made Ethan's chest tighten. "There is no mistake," the other twin's voice said in his mind. "We are fragile. We cannot survive without you." Ethan swallowed hard. His training told him to remain calm, but his mind was spinning. He had been told about Lyrian survival needs, but he had assumed they were exaggerating. Now it was impossible to ignore the reality in front of him. The twins were tiny, yes, but their presence radiated intelligence, urgency, and an energy that felt almost sacred. The council led him to a chamber with soft light that seemed to come from the walls themselves. It smelled faintly of flowers and minerals, and the floor was warm under his boots. They placed the twins gently on a low, glowing platform. Despite their small size, they moved gracefully, stepping forward as if they owned the room. Ethan knelt to meet their gaze. "Why me?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Why do I have to do this?" Mira's small hand reached toward him, and a warm pulse of energy ran through his arm. "Because you are human," she said. "Your kind carries something no one else has. It is in your blood. You can help us. You are our protector." Ethan stared at her, unsure if he was dreaming. It felt impossible. And yet, the sensation of their connection was undeniable. He could feel their hope, their fear, their quiet trust. It was overwhelming. The council remained silent as he struggled to grasp the reality of his situation. He had trained for dangerous missions, for hostile encounters, for negotiation with alien races, but this was different. He was not being asked to fight nor to persuade. He was being asked to safeguard life itself, to nurture beings whose survival was entwined with his very presence. Hours passed. The twins showed him small things, not with words, but with their thoughts. He learned that they could communicate with nature, that the plants and animals of Lyria Prime responded to their presence. He saw flowers bloom where their tiny hands touched, and small creatures gather around them as if drawn by an unseen force. Ethan could hardly believe what he was witnessing. When night fell, the chamber's light dimmed to a soft glow, and the twins looked at him expectantly. "You must stay," Neela said. "Tonight is important. You will understand everything soon." Ethan hesitated. Every instinct screamed that he should leave, that this was madness. But he felt something deeper, a pull that went beyond logic. He sat down carefully on the floor, unsure what would happen next. The twins climbed onto his lap, their tiny forms surprisingly warm, and their glowing eyes met his. And then the visions began. At first, they were faint flashes, images of alien cities in ruins, of vast forests consumed by fire, of starships traveling across impossible distances. Then the images grew sharper, showing him the Lyrians' past, their near extinction, the wars they had survived, and the moments of hope that had carried them through. Ethan realized that these tiny beings were not children in the way humans understood. They were repositories of memory, carrying centuries of experience in minds so small, yet astonishingly complex. "You see now," Mira said, her voice echoing in his thoughts. "This is why you are here. We cannot survive alone. We need your kind. Your DNA can help us grow. Your presence can protect us." Ethan's head was spinning. He had faced danger, yes, but never responsibility of this magnitude. The future of an entire species rested on him. And yet, these beings trusted him completely. There was no room for hesitation. As the night deepened, he noticed subtle changes in himself. His senses sharpened, his awareness extended, and he began to feel an unusual energy linking him to the twins. It was as if he could sense the tiniest pulse of life on the planet. He realized that the Lyrians' survival depended not only on his protection, but also on his understanding of their unique biology. The twins' telepathy was only part of it. There was something in him that resonated with them, something he did not yet fully comprehend. Hours passed, and the chamber's warmth became a comfort. The twins sat quietly beside him, their small hands resting on his arms, their glow dimming but never disappearing. Ethan began to speak softly, sharing thoughts of Earth, of humans, of the life he had left behind. The twins listened, absorbing every detail. Though they were small, their responses were wise, filled with curiosity and insight that belied their fragile appearance. By midnight, the first challenge appeared. A sudden tremor shook the chamber, faint, but enough to startle Ethan. The twins' eyes flared with light, and he felt a surge of urgency through them. Mira and Neela communicated rapidly in his mind, coordinating movements he did not fully understand. Together, they navigated the chamber as if it were a living maze, avoiding falling debris and shielding delicate instruments that lined the walls. Ethan realized something profound. These tiny beings were capable of orchestrating complex actions far beyond his initial expectations. They were small in size, yes, but immense in intelligence and influence. He understood that the real test was not simply protection, it was partnership. When the tremor subsided, Ethan sat back, breathing heavily. Mira and Neela looked up at him, their glowing eyes calm once more. "You see," Neela said, "we are stronger together. You are not alone." Ethan nodded slowly. He could not yet fully accept the enormity of his role, but he understood one thing clearly. He could not leave. Not now. Not while these tiny beings depended on him, not while the survival of a species was at stake. As the night continued, Ethan felt the first real bond form between him and the twins. They were playful, curious, and wise, and their presence transformed fear into resolve. He realized that his life had changed forever. He had come to Lyria Prime expecting adventure, but he had found something far more important: trust, responsibility, and a connection that spanned species and stars. By dawn, the chamber's soft glow was joined by the pale light of the rising sun. Ethan looked down at Mira and Neela, who had curled up beside him, their eyes now calm and serene. He knew that the challenges ahead would be great, but he also knew he was not alone. The twins' small hands held on to his, and in that simple gesture, he felt the weight of their trust and the promise of the journey ahead. Ethan had laughed when he first saw them, thinking it was a joke, but now he understood. There had been no joke. The night had revealed a truth far beyond humor or disbelief. He had been chosen for something extraordinary, something that would test him, change him, and link his fate to that of these tiny, incredible beings. And as he watched the first rays of Lyria Prime's sun touch the hills outside, Ethan felt a sense of determination he had never known before. He would not fail them. He would not let the Lyrians down. For the first time, he truly understood what it meant to be humanity's ambassador, not just to a planet or a species, but to life itself. The first light of dawn spilled across the hills of Lyria Prime, painting the sky in shades of soft violet and gold. Ethan awoke to the gentle warmth of the twins' presence beside him. Mira and Neela stirred quietly, their small forms glowing faintly, a subtle reminder of the extraordinary beings they were. The previous night had left him both exhausted and awake in a way that felt like a rebirth. His senses were sharper, his mind buzzing with the knowledge the twins had shared, yet he felt calm in a way he had never known. He sat up slowly, careful not to startle them. The twins' eyes met his, and he felt their thoughts ripple through him like a calm river. "Good morning," he said softly, though he knew they heard him without words. Mira tilted her head, and a faint glow pulsed from her eyes. Neela reached out and touched his hand with her tiny fingers, a warmth spreading through him that was impossible to describe. "You are ready," Mira's voice whispered in his mind. "Tonight, you will understand fully." Ethan had questions, of course. He wanted to know exactly what the Lyrians needed, why the twins had chosen him, and how his presence could truly protect them. But he also realized that some answers could only come with experience, with action, and with trust. The twins did not rush him. Instead, they guided him with a patient insistence that left no room for doubt. Throughout the morning, Ethan learned more about their abilities. The twins could manipulate small aspects of their environment, light, temperature, and even minor gravitational shifts, though only subtly. It was enough to make plants grow faster, to lift tiny objects without touching them, and to create protective barriers when danger approached. Ethan watched, fascinated, as a cluster of flowers responded to their thoughts, opening and closing in perfect rhythm. They were small, yes, but their connection to the world around them was immense. The council returned mid-morning, observing Ethan and the twins with quiet approval. "You are learning quickly," one of them said, their voice like a melody. "Soon, you will understand why your kind is essential to ours. Tonight will bring the most important lesson." Ethan nodded, trying to mask the tension coiling in his stomach. He had a feeling the lesson would be unlike anything he had faced before. And indeed, as evening fell, the twins' guidance became urgent. The chamber grew dim, the natural light of Lyria Prime replaced by the soft glow of bioluminescent walls. Ethan felt the twins' pulse of energy shift, a subtle warning that something was approaching. Mira and Neela's eyes flared brightly, and suddenly, he was no longer just observing. He was participating. He could feel the threads of life around him, the vibrations of the ground, the subtle movements of the air, and even the smallest shifts in the twins themselves. "They are coming," Neela whispered in his mind. "We need your help." Ethan's heart raced. He had expected challenge, yes, but not an attack so soon. Yet as he glanced toward the entrance of the chamber, he realized that the danger was not monstrous in the way human stories described monsters. It was cunning, precise, and alien, a rival species that had once nearly wiped out the Lyrians, returning now to finish the job. Their forms shimmered with shadow, difficult to define, and their intentions radiated malice. Ethan felt Mira and Neela press against him, tiny yet insistent. Their telepathy reached into his mind, guiding him toward solutions he could not have imagined alone. "You can protect us," Mira said. "Trust yourself, as we trust you." The first wave of attackers reached the chamber. Ethan moved instinctively, following the twins' guidance. They taught him how to use his environment strategically, shifting panels, creating barriers with the twins' energy, and even using the reflective surfaces of the chamber to confuse their enemies. Each movement was precise, a dance choreographed by the twins' minds and his own instincts. For hours, the battle continued in subtle ways. There were no massive explosions, no weapons of mass destruction. Instead, it was a contest of wits, agility, and intelligence. Ethan realized that this was the real test. Not brute force, but the ability to protect life through cleverness, patience, and trust. The twins' knowledge of the environment, combined with his human creativity, allowed them to outmaneuver the attackers repeatedly. During the quiet moments between attacks, Ethan felt the twins' gratitude and awe. They were small, yes, but their understanding of life and survival surpassed almost anything he had seen in humans or aliens alike. He could feel the weight of their expectations, yet he also felt a deep connection, a bond that made fear shrink and courage grow. By midnight, the attackers began to retreat. Ethan, guided by the twins, had created barriers that forced the enemies into a confined space where they could not cause harm. Mira and Neela glowed softly, their energy pulsing in relief and triumph. Ethan looked at them and smiled, exhaustion heavy on his shoulders but pride filling his chest. He had succeeded, not just in protecting them, but in proving that humans could rise to challenges beyond imagining. The aftermath of the battle was quiet, but profound. The council members returned, their expressions a mix of awe and gratitude. "You have passed the first test," one of them said. "Not all humans would have succeeded. You have shown courage, intelligence, and the ability to care. Tonight, you have become part of our species' story." Ethan knelt beside the twins. You both are incredible," he said softly. "I could never have done this without you." Mira and Neela smiled, their small faces glowing faintly. "We knew you could," Neela said. "You are the bridge between our worlds. You are the guardian of our future." As the sun began to rise over the alien horizon, Ethan felt a sense of clarity he had never known. The night had tested him in ways he could not have imagined. He had faced fear, danger, and responsibility beyond human comprehension. Yet he had also discovered something extraordinary, a connection that transcended species, a bond of trust and understanding that would guide him for the rest of his life. In the days that followed, Ethan learned more about the twins' abilities and their culture. They taught him the secrets of Lyrian technology, the subtle energies that powered their cities, and the importance of balance between life and nature. Each day he grew more confident, more capable, and more aware of the unique role he played. The twins' laughter became a daily joy, their curiosity a constant source of wonder. And yet, beneath the calm and learning, Ethan never forgot the gravity of his task. The survival of the Lyrians depended on him, not just as a protector, but as a partner in their growth. The twins' lives, their future, and the continuation of an entire species rested on the choices he made, the lessons he learned, and the courage he found within himself. As weeks passed, the bond between Ethan and the twins deepened. They shared moments of play, exploration, and quiet reflection. Mira and Neela taught him how to sense life in ways he had never known, how to feel the heartbeat of a forest, the rhythm of the winds, and the subtle whispers of the soil. Ethan realized that this connection was not just survival, it was life itself, vibrant, fragile, and beautiful. One evening, as the three of them watched the three moons rise over the hills, Ethan understood the truth that had been dawning since the first night. The twins were small, but their impact was immense. They had given him knowledge, trust, and purpose. In return, he had given them protection, guidance, and the assurance that they could grow into the future. "You are ready for what comes next," Mira said, her voice calm and steady in his mind. "The galaxy is wide, and our story has only begun. You will help us not just survive, but thrive." Ethan looked at the twins, their tiny hands resting in his, their eyes glowing faintly in the moonlight. He felt a surge of determination, unlike anything he had known. He had laughed when he first saw them, thinking it was a joke. Now he understood that it was never a joke. It was destiny, a calling to rise above fear, to embrace responsibility, and to protect life in its most delicate and precious form. The horizon stretched endlessly before them, filled with stars, planets, and possibilities. Ethan knew the challenges ahead would be great, but he also knew that with Mira and Neela by his side, nothing was impossible. Together, they would face the galaxy, not as separate beings, but as a team united by trust, courage, and the unbreakable bond of survival. And so, with the first light of dawn illuminating the hills of Lyria Prime, Ethan, Mira, and Neela began a journey that would shape not only their lives, but the future of an entire species. The night had tested them, but it had also awakened a new beginning, one filled with hope, wonder, and the promise of life across the stars. Ethan had been chosen, yes, but he had also chosen to protect, to learn, and to stand beside these extraordinary beings. The future of the Lyrians was now intertwined with humanity, and together they would face whatever the galaxy could throw at them. As the twins' soft glow faded into the morning light, Ethan whispered, almost to himself, "We will survive together." The twins responded, not in words, but in a shared pulse of energy, a rhythm that spoke louder than any sentence could. It was a rhythm of life, trust, and the infinite possibilities that lay ahead. And for the first time in his life, Ethan felt fully at peace, knowing that the tiny hands in his held the weight of a universe, and that they would guide him through it. The journey had begun, and nothing would ever be the same again.